How's everyone doing? Jags Nation here to bring you another video. And today we have a special guest, John O'Leary, also known as Jags Fan Cave on YouTube. How you doing today, man?
What's going on, man? Hey, it's a great day. We're just a week over from the week out from the draft, and I couldn't be more excited.
No, absolutely. It's been a while since I've had you on for a video, and man, I'm just excited to talk some Jags football, though.
Absolutely.
All right, so like you said, the draft coming up in about a week or so. Jags obviously had the number one pick, and believe it or not, in my opinion, I think this is the worst year to have the number one pick. I don't think there's really a clear cut, number one guy like that every team wants. Obviously, I think the Jaguars would like to trade out the number one pick, but I just don't think no one's willing to give up the draft capital the Jaguars would be willing to take for the number one selection. So with that being said, who would be your top three, options at the number one pick?
Obviously, you got to start with the two big pass rushers, Aiden Hutchinson and Trayvon Walker. And then for me, I'm actually a really big fan of Ike Ekwonu, and I hear that a lot of other guys are as well. Definitely when you listen to the rumor mill, you hear that Ekwonu is probably the league favorite of the three big tackles with Cross, Neal, and Ekwonu. And with Dougie P trying to sway Trent into going offense, I could absolutely see Ekwonu being that that sleeper third pick of the top three.
Yeah, he's definitely my third option. Number one was Aiden Hutchinson, and number two, Trayvon Walker. So it seems like we're on the same page. Trayvon Walker is a very interesting name because he doesn't obviously have the stats up there, getting to the quarterback and all that. But I think overall, his athleticism and all the tools he has, he can be the best pass rusher coming out of the draft. I do think as of right now, he is the best run stopping defensive in the draft, which I guess would be a positive going up against Derrick Henry and from the Titans as well as Jonathan Taylor for the Colts. So that would actually be a huge plus. But if we somehow can get rid of the number one pick and, fall back a few slots, my favorite player in the draft, though, is Jermaine Johnson from Florida State. I think he's the best pass rusher in the draft.
Really? So, I mean, if with that being said, do you take him at one then? If, you put your GM hat on, are you taking Jermaine Johnson 101?
That's the problem, man. I don't know if he's worth number one. It's so hard for them to have the number one pick this year. It's just I think the Jags are just not in the best spot, in my opinion, picking number one, and that's why I wish we could trade back. But I don't think no one's willing to give up the draft capital. I do think Aiden Hutchinson can be a good player. I think Evan Neal, if you go Evan Neal, I think there's a lot of good talent in the draft, but I don't think there's that clear cut number one player though.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. For me, if you can fall back, if you can stay within the top five and you're looking at, okay, Aiden Hutchinson's off the board, maybe Trayvon Walker's off the board, maybe the Texans try to go flip the script and, they go like someone like Sauce Gardner and, and that leaves you with, a very good, the value is there more, obviously. You can pick up a third or whatever. Honestly, that's where I'm at with this. I really don't have a clear cut favorite. So if you're giving me a third and I have to go back 2 spots, okay, I'll take it. I'll have it doesn't matter to me. The change between Aiden Hutchinson to Jermaine Johnson or Kayvon Thibodeau really isn't that big for me. And if I'm having to make the pick, obviously I'll be upset if the guy I wanted at 1 isn't there at 3 or he isn't there at 5. But overall, it's not going to faze me one bit if I end up with a B+ player instead of the A- player that you think you're getting with Aiden Hutchinson or Trayvon Walker.
No, absolutely. I mean, let's see here. If the Giants call up, and I think Giants are pick 6 or 7?
I believe they're 7. Yeah, I think they're 4 and 8.
I mean, if they offer number 4 and the third round pick, like you said, for number 1, I'd be more than happy. It's only one pick we're getting in return, but I mean, the way all the players are, there's not that clear cut number 1 guy like we both said. So I don't think you're going to get if there was a quarterback, like a legit quarterback, like number 1 a quarterback every team wants, the Jags would have ransom. I mean, they would probably get 3 first-round picks in return. But if they do trade, we're probably looking at maybe a third or a fourth at best, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately. But I wanted to ask you something. This was something I was bouncing around in my head. Is there anyone in the league you would consider trading the number 1 overall for straight up? I have a couple names in my head. Obviously, the big ones are DK and Debo. Is there any other sleeper ones you could pull out of that hat maybe that you'd take?
I was about to say Debo, but Debo and DK are definitely my 2. I would definitely throw the number 1 at. I'm trying to think. You caught me off guard on that one now.
My bad.
No, I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously, I would do Quentin Nelson, but the Colts ain't gonna give up the all pro guard to the division rivalry. So, no, I think it's just Debo and DK. Honestly, at this point right now, I would even throw AJ Brown in there, but once again, division rivalry. Not gonna give it. It's gonna be realistic here. But if I had to pick between Debo and DK, I would pick DK just because I think he's that clear cut, big, X wide receiver. We already have, a slot guy in Christian Kirk. Laviska, we're hoping he can become that Debo. We're hoping, probably not though. So that's why I would go with DK Metcalf. But if we got Debo with the number one, just for the number one selection straight up, I'd be all for it.
The reason I asked that was because I was kind of just, I was just milling around on like Pro Football Reference, things like that. And a name jumped out at me, Roquan Smith, middle linebacker for the Bears. That's someone, if the Bears are willing to deal him and somehow the Jaguars can find the $15 million it would take to pay Roquan Smith, because he's coming up on the end of his rookie deal. So he's going to look to get paid. He's one of the best middle linebackers quietly in the league. And I would have a hard time saying no if the Bears came knocking and said Roquan for the first pick straight up. I'd have a very hard time turning that away.
I mean, he's a great player. Like you said, if we can figure out the cap situation, but I think the cap is pretty much fake. I mean, look what the Rams do. I mean, they say pretty much, hey, screw picks, screw the money. We're just going to bring everyone in. So I think the Jags definitely can make, the money to bring Smith in. And I would definitely be intrigued by the option. We definitely need another more help at the linebacker position. So, yeah, I mean, I'd be all for that. I think the Jaguars should be looking at, around the league, just, seeing what's available, who's available, is any team willing to give up, their star defense or offense player just for the number one pick, especially teams in a rebuilding, mode like the Seattle Seahawks. They're obviously clearly rebuilding. They don't really I don't think they're going with Drew Lock as their quarterback. If they are, then I don't know what they're thinking. Obviously, they're probably thinking rookie quarterback, but I mean, I think Bears are in a bad spot as well. I don't think they're giving any talent around Justin Fields at all. They got 10 times worse than they were last year, and I'd be all for getting Roquan Smith as well.
Absolutely. Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack your show.
No, that was
popped in, and I figured I'd throw it out.
No, I actually love that question. I actually wish I would have came up with that. But so now stick with the draft talk. What are some sleepers in this draft that, some people might not know about, or, might know, but are options the Jaguars could potentially looking at, maybe in like the third, fourth, fifth round?
Honestly, for me, Brian Robinson, the running back out of Alabama, the Jaguars need a running back in this class. And when you look at what Travis Etienne, who is hopeful to be 100% come fall, James Robinson really has that, slow, methodical, thumping kind of running style that Etienne lacks. And that's where Robinson picks it up. You think about the big mauling running backs that have been in the National Football League in the past. Brian Robinson almost reminds me of a Brandon Jacobs of the Giants, where he does not have home run capability in him at all. But if you need a Mack truck to get you 5 yards, he is going to find the way to get that 5 yards. Obviously, when I say things like that, probably Toby Gerhart's the first thing that jumps into Jaguar fans' minds. But with a fifth round pick, obviously, they don't have one, but they have probably lead the league in the amount of 6th round picks that they have. Give 2 of them up. Go get Robinson if you think he's someone that you can absolutely be a benefit to this running back room.
Hey, I'd be all for that. We definitely need another running back, especially with Etienne and J-Rob coming off injuries. You don't know how they're going to be, come week one, even though it does seem like Etienne will be, full go when it comes to training camp. So I assume he'll probably be the starter, week one. James Robinson probably take him a few weeks to get going, or even, get playing time at all. But there's a few players I actually, I put down that Jags fans should, be on the lookout for. Number one is a safety from Florida A&M, Marquez Bell. I think he has the potential to be the best safety in the draft, but I don't think he gets a lot of love just for the fact that he went to Florida A&M. It's not a, huge attraction, not a big school, but I love the way he plays, and I think he could fit right next to Andre Cisco very well, and I think that can become a ball hawking secondary. Another player is Cade Mays, offense lineman from Tennessee. Probably maybe in the 4th round. I think he's getting a lot more juice now. I think a lot more people teams are eyeing him, and I think he can come in. I think he can play guard, he can play center, he can do a little bit of everything, and obviously that versatility is very good, especially with someone like Doug Peterson, who loves his offensive lineman, loves the trenches. And then the other guy is Drake Jackson, the edge rusher from USC. He's a 3-4 guy. And I
Mhm.
think he reminds me a lot of DeJuan Smoot. And even if we do get, a pass rusher at 1, Aiden Hutchinson, Trayvon Walker, I feel like you can't have enough pass rushers. That's just a position of need for the Jaguars, and just, having a good rotational player. Obviously, Chason has proven he's not going to be not even a good rotational player at all. I mean, his Twitter name is Sack Guru, and he has 2 career sacks. That name needs to go.
Exactly.
So Drake Jackson's definitely a name that's intriguing to me, and if he was a day 3 pick, I'd be all for it.
And one other guy I want to throw out there is, obviously the Jaguars, there's a lot of talk of them potentially going offensive line with that first overall pick. I absolutely think rounds 4 through the rest of the draft is going to be an offensive heavy look if they don't go, especially at the tackle position right now. They really don't have a backup tackle unless you look at Jawan Taylor as their, backup for the foreseeable future. But a guy I really like is Zach Tom out of Wake Forest. I got a lot of heat for him in my last video where I was talking about O-line protection for Trevor, but over 600 pass blocking snaps in 2021, and he allowed 8 pressures. Like, that's absurd. He would be an insanely cheap replacement if you're looking for somebody to develop and have, grow within the Doug Peterson offense. PFF mentioned about him. He is a future starter. And for being, a 5th round pick, a 4th round pick, and you're looking at potentially a future starter, bring him home all day long. And I would love to see him be a Jaguar potentially.
Hey, I'm all for that. I think fans need to realize picks 4 through 7, they're developmental players. They don't have to become instant starters. They don't have to contribute right away. Ideally, you like to see them, on special teams and some capability, but offensive linemen, defensive linemen, you definitely, you can grow them, in-house, and then in 2 or 3 years, then they can become starters. So I'm all for that, especially, you said he plays guard, correct?
He's a tackle.
Oh, a tackle. That's right. And I mean, you don't know with Cam Robinson, if we don't get a long-term deal with him, you don't know how Walker Little is going to look at right tackle. So I'd be all for that. You bring in more offensive line depth. That's one of the positions in the league that players get hurt all the time. So having as deep of offensive line as you can have would definitely be great for the Jaguars.
Absolutely.
And one more player I actually do want to bring up, actually 2 more. And the first one is Damian Clark, a linebacker from LSU, probably, 3rd or 4th round pick, maybe even 5th round pick. He's I think he would fit really well in for the Jaguars. I think he could be an instant starter for someone in the 4th or 5th round. He's not, a clear cut, not like a Quay Walker, not like a, Dean from Georgia. He's no one like that, but I think for someone in the 4th or 5th round, he's good at tackling, decent at coverage. I think he can definitely be a cheap option. And the other one is Alec Pierce. He's actually gaining quite a big esteem from Cincinnati. I'd be all for that, but I'm only willing to take him probably 3rd round, but I think he's going to end with 1 second though.
What kind of player would have to be available for you to look at trading back up into the 1st round, or if even trading back up into the 2nd round?
Probably for me, it's probably definitely gonna be a wide receiver, because I think at 33 they are picking linebacker. I see so many reports. It seems like, don't know how true it is, but it seems like the Jags love Quay Walker from Georgia, and I'd be all for that at 33. A lot of people actually have him as the number 2 linebacker in the draft. And I actually seen this stat from PFF. I believe it was PFF that put it out. He did not allow a single touchdown in coverage all in college.
I mean, how often are they dropping back in a coverage?
Yeah, but I'll be all for that, because, our linebackers usually aren't good at covering, tight ends and all that. So
absolutely,
I'd be all for that. But trading back into the 1st round, or, maybe even going back into the 2nd round, definitely be for a wide receiver. A player I would love to trade back into the 1st round is Jamison Williams. If he's there like pick 20, 21, I would love to get up there and get him. I think he's the best wide receiver in the draft if he was healthy. Unfortunately, he's, not healthy. He will be healthy by training camp, but love the way he plays. And I think he can come in here and be impactful day 1.
How early is too early for George Pickens?
I'd even consider him at 33, but what's crazy about this wide receiver, class this year is that if there's a chance there's going to be a big run on wide receivers early on, you can see 6 or 7 wide receivers going 1st round this year.
Absolutely.
But that's going to be good for the Jaguars, because you're going to have probably some of these defensive players, or even like someone like Zion Johnson, offensive lineman, fall to pick 33. So I think you're going to have a lot of good players falling in the Jaguars' lap at 33. But that's only if there's a big run on wide receivers. But I'm a big fan of George Pickens. I'd be all for him at 33, even maybe trading up into the late 1st round for him. Either way, I think it seems like we're both on the consensus that the Jaguars are picking a wide receiver. in the first 3 rounds. It's gonna happen, I think.
I don't know. For me, I could see it falling where they don't go wide
Oh
receiver
man,
until 70.
till 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
At 70, like you go defensive line first overall.
Yeah.
You look at, Leo Chanel, Quay Walker, linebacker there. Maybe you like one of the linemen there at, 65. You like Tom, maybe John Marie Sawyer, player like that. And then the value's there for linemen at 65. So maybe you look like an Alec Pierce at 70. Maybe you even push it to 106. I don't know. I do see it. I would be a little bit upset if, we're looking at 65 and 70 as being linemen and, tight end and still no wide receiver. But at the same time, if we get value and if we get Tyson Campbell level production from a position where we really didn't think we needed a whole lot of upgrading, but then we end up being like, holy cow, this guy could be an all pro next year, like an AJ Terrell level next step.
Yeah.
And if we get that kind of production out of those players from 33 to 70, the hell with it. Take a wide receiver with the 262. I don't care. Obviously, I'm kidding. Obviously.
Man, last year, dude, I was not the biggest fan of Tyson Campbell, the selection, but man, halfway through the season, he completely turned, I think, everyone's opinion around. I mean, he ended up balling out that second half. The first year, he struggled getting his head around, but is it crazy to think that by the end of this season, end of 2022, he could be the number 1 corner for the Jags?
I think there's a bigger chance that happens than it not happening.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think the kid, he's fast. He even in training camp and in preseason, he was always sticking to the wide receiver. He just could never turn around his head. And
exactly.
he learned that halfway through the season, and that's a great trait. And that was awesome that, we've seen him develop and get better each and every week. So I'm excited about a trio, though, of corners with him, Griffin, and Williams, though. I think that's going to be a nasty duo. Nasty. Or trio.
How much credit do we have to give Urban Meyer? Because, a lot of that talk was that it was Urban Meyer's draft class and Trent Baalke was just kind of along for the ride. How much credit do we give Urban for that? Because one's obviously a hit. 25 looked like it was pretty good. 60 or 33, we just talked about him. 45 is your potential starting right tackle. Like, those are 4 really good picks.
And you have Andre Cisco, who, I mean, he's a ball hawk when healthy. He only played the last 4 games and he caused like 2 turnovers.
Exactly.
So he's obviously one of your starting safeties. Not counting Trevor Lawrence, because that was any GM and coach would have picked Trevor Lawrence on one. That's not even a question. But if you're looking at 20, 25, 33, obviously, we got Walker Little. If it was Urban Meyer, I would give him some credit. I'm not going to give him full credit because I just don't like him. He could have been the one picking all that and all the players, and I still would have. No. I don't know. I'm going to give it 50-50. 50%, it's on Urban, 50% on Baalke. Baalke's starting to turn my head slightly a little bit, as in like I can somewhat deal with him though.
I don't know. That most recent episode of The Hunt just kind of.
Oh, remember Colin was sitting there? What's the point of this?
Yeah. Well, we're here to verify. We're just here to verify. Really, that's all you're doing. You're just verifying. You could draft tomorrow. You're just verifying, huh?
I love that scene when I obviously we don't know what player it was because they didn't show the player, but Doug Peterson and obviously Baalke looked at each other and was like, yeah, that's a no-go for us. I was talking about a player. That player definitely messed up whoever that was on the field.
I love that how many memes are just like how many meme capable quotes and pictures and stills are coming out of this series they're doing. Because, in episode 1, you have he's a draftable player. And then, into this next one, why are we here? It's like, oh God, can we just stop? We're not even trying to be a joke, but we're turning into just this massive laughing stock because we're producing this, what should be a really cool thing, but we just make our front office staff look like buffoons and our owner just look like he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't, but
yeah, it's true. He doesn't. Yeah, I mean, I love The Hunt, but like certain scenes, like you just pointed out from the first episode, second episode, it shouldn't be in there because it just makes us look like clowns. But I like, the ending. Obviously, it's probably Doug Peterson just saying it, just, you want to get the players hyped, but hear him say, expect to play in January and February, man, gives me goosebumps, man. I'm so hyped about Doug Peterson though.
For my first real season of being like a really like in-depth Jaguar fan was 2016. I remember I begged my parents to buy season tickets. then right before the season starts, I go and join the Army. I move away. I've been away since 2016, but so I'm at my first duty station, and then 2017 pops off, and I'm like, for the love of God, all I had to do was leave the city, and this team turns into a winner. It's like, okay, cool, whatever. I'll for the sake of the city, I'll stay away. Then obviously 2018, we just go right back down. But I'm excited to have hope again. I fully bought in with Urban, but I could not be more excited about Doug. And because honestly, he's the first head coach to come to Jacksonville with a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
Obviously Tom went and got 2 in New York after he left, but still that's it. That's the only head coach that the Jaguars have currently with a ring on their resume.
What's crazy is Doug Peterson. He's got the coach game for the Jaguars, but he's probably the second best coach as of right now we've ever had behind Tom Coughlin. If you think about
it. For me, it's still, I don't know, because Jack was good.
Jack was good. He was sort of inconsistent though. He had his good, few good stretches and a bad stretch and a good stretch.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at him, he has the second most playoff appearances in team history, right?
Yeah. 2005, 2007, and then they had a winning 8-8 in 2010, and I think a winning season in 2004. So I mean, they had 8-8 or better for the season, which is a lot better than what we do now.
Yeah, exactly. And Doug and Jack have to be tied for their, at least appearances. Obviously, Tom is leading that pack, but I don't know. Right now, I'd put him at third, just because I have Doug and Jack tied for second.
Okay, no, I definitely can see it, man. But just glad to have a good coach, a coach that knows what he's doing, someone that's going to develop players actually and know who he actually knows his roster, unlike Urban Meyer, who had no idea who his team was.
James, the running back, and Roy Roberts, and that guy, that number 99 guy from Los Angeles.
Oh yeah, who's that guy? I don't know who that is.
Yeah, but the first ballot Hall of Famer and arguably the greatest defensive player of all time. Yeah, who is that guy?
Yeah, I was reading a report. It's funny because I know you've seen that video of that guy that made on CBS of joking around with Urban Meyer and all that, or about Urban Meyer acting like him. But the report was when we were getting prepared to face Houston week 1, that he was watching film about Joe Mixon week 4, like getting prepared for him. And I just still can't comprehend my head around that. Like 4 weeks, you're trying to get prepared for a running back. Makes no sense at all.
Who still had a very good game.
Yeah, who still had a very good game against us.
He still played I think he still was like a 100-yard rusher in that game anyway. So he was watching film a month in advance and still didn't do anything to stop him.
Yeah, none. I'm just glad that Urban's gone. And obviously you can tell Balky, I think, didn't like him either. I think Balky might have been the one slipping some information out there.
I listened to the Bull Take Pod a while back with Mark Long, and just every little nugget Mark was dropping about how much Trent is just a piece of work and just a snake in the grass was just, I honestly want to go back and listen to it again because I enjoyed just him dogging Trent Baalke for an hour.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely a character for sure, man. You definitely got to have a lot of willpower to work with him though. All right, so another question I'm with you going forward is the Jaguars obviously going forward. What positions of need do they still have? Obviously, you're not going to fill up every position in the draft. It's just not how it's going to be. But what are your top 3 or maybe even top 4, biggest position of need?
Honestly, obviously, it's pass rusher. You can't go into next year with what you had last year. You can't, Josh Allen was good. Juwan Smoot's going to give you his 6 sacks a year. Great. That's a hell of a rotational piece. But you need someone opposite of Josh Allen. You need to have that. The other thing is right now you look at the Jags linebacker room. Linebacker is absolutely their second need right now. You signed a Lewican, who is an incredible talent, should have been an All-Pro last year. And then you go to Shaq Quarterman. That is where the Jaguars linebacker room's at. Obviously, Shaq has the potential to be a good quality starter in the league, but is he someone that can wear the green dot right now? No. You look at Chad Muma, potentially Leo Chanel. Those are 2 players that could potentially wear the green dot in their rookie year. And then third is interior offensive line. You need guard depth. Shatley was your depth. Linda retires. Shatley becomes the projected starter. You need someone to, be that, the 6th, 7th guy on the depth chart for the interior of the offensive line. And fourth, it's going to come as a surprise. I really don't like their interior of the defensive line. I absolutely think that is somewhere that they need to look. Obviously, they made a lot of improvements last year, and then that obviously puts wide receiver fifth. I think there's just bigger needs right now than wide receiver on this team.
No, I agree with a lot of those. Number one for me is edge rusher. Josh Allen needs help. Dewan Smoot, big fan of his. I think he's a fan favorite. But like you said, he's a 6-7 sack guy a year. Nothing wrong with that. That's actually, if that's your third guy getting 6-7 sacks, I think you're obviously doing great work out there.
Mm-hmm.
For me, linebacker again, but I think we need 2 linebackers. Obviously, one that can come in and be a starter right away. Maybe someone in the 6th, 7th round that can contribute on special teams. Maybe down the road can become a starter. Another running back. So we talked about that earlier. We need help at running back, especially with 2 running backs coming off injury. You don't know how they're going to perform. They could both be healthy week 1, but they might not play well. So we definitely need that third running back. I have interior offensive line. I have like guard/center, someone that can be versatile and play both positions, ideally guard and center. And then my 5th one was safety. Obviously, we have Andre Cisco back there. I'm not the biggest fan of Andrew Wingard. I think a lot of people aren't. I think he's pretty good at special teams. I'm going to give him that. Daniel Thomas, I'm a fan of his. I just think Daniel Thomas is a guy. I think he's a good number 3 and number 4 safety. I don't think he's a starting safety. And then obviously Rayshon Jenkins, who we paid last year in free agency. I didn't see enough of him last year. I just thought he was very inconsistent. I thought he was pretty good at stopping the run, but it still bugs me, man. He just was getting a lot of dumb penalties against him. He obviously got kicked out of that 49ers game, ejected. And as a captain, you can't be having that. But I feel like we do need another safety alongside Cisco.
Absolutely. I was kind of teetering on safety as well. Absolutely.
I mean, I think overall, though, the strength of the Jaguars team is the secondary, though, right now. That's just me, though. I really do. I think when you look at it, your trio of corners, obviously, then you have Andre Cisco as one of your safeties. And I think so far that's not a bad secondary. I think it's a secondary that's going to get a lot of takeaways next year.
Oh, I'm very excited to see what Cisco looks like in a full year of play.
No, absolutely. But overall, thank you all for watching. Definitely check out Jags Fan Cave's Twitter. I'll put that in the link in the description below, as well as his YouTube channel. So definitely go check that out. Hit that subscribe button for me, as well as Jags Fan Cave, and go Jags.
Hey, go Jags.